Hello, everybody. So I'm really pleased that I get the opportunity to talk about the topics that are at my heart. And one of those topics is quality management review. And tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about benchmarking quantitatively. I want to share with you the objective of this webinar. And at the end of this webinar, you'll have a fresh perspective on quality management review, and you'll have an approach to implement it in a quantitative manner. A little bit about myself. My name is Tobias, Kunars of Koenders. I've got my own consulting company. I work from the Netherlands in Europe, and I provide business and technical expertise pertaining to the pharmaceutical, biotech, medical device, and food for special medical purpose industry. I've been doing that for a little more than 13 years. And I've worked with companies like Biogen, with Ipsen, Patheon, Thermo Fisher Scientific, Catalent, Wuxi Biologics, Kite Pharma, Danone, Cryoport Systems, and several other companies. And as a consultant in that capacity, I bring hands-on experience in engineering services, equipment qualification, maintenance, supply chain, warehouse, and distribution. And when doing that, I always have quality at heart. For those that work in the pharmaceutical industry, they may know that quality assurance is an important and essential element of work. And I typically bring that to the party when I work for my clients, provide them with things like quality management system maturation, that when you have like audits, typically the FDA comes by and they will recognize things where you need to improve. And I've got a 5-step maturation program where you can look at where you are currently and where you need to go in order to have a mature quality management system. I support clients with audits, identifying gaps there, and help them remediate those. And next to that, support them in deviation management and CAPA implementation, CAPA being corrective actions and preventive actions. So far to my introduction. And my mother gave me a real good name, Tobias, because occasions I tend to be a little bit too biased. So if you look at quality management review, you can look at it from a corporate level design, that you have a division at strategic level, and that you have more than one site within that division. So on an operational side, you may have different departments like a quality assurance department, a manufacturing department, and a supply chain department. And across the board, so across the different sites that you have in your division, you'll have multiple departments, or maybe a QA is an overarching department over all those sites. So there's basically 3 levels of looking at your quality management review. You have a strategic review where, for instance, you look at the quarterly reviews, and an operational where you look at the monthly reviews, and also tactical. You can do weekly reviews or also monthly reviews. And those, when you look at the site level, you go a little bit deeper in there. You also have strategic, operational, and tactical reviews. And with that, you can look at the cost of quality. And if you consider cost of quality as a strategic activity, you'll have on an operational level the cost of control and the cost of failure to control. And those can be broken down in tactical elements, that is prevention cost and appraisal cost for the cost of control. And on the cost of failure to control, you have internal cost of failure of control and external cost of failure of control. These are the things that you typically hear and talk about when people talk about quality management review on a quantitative manner. And if we go a little bit deeper there, the appraisal and prevention cost can be broken down into elements like for appraisal, QC, quality control, income and goods inspection, the laboratory acceptance testing, the quality testing and inspection, product review and release, and inspection and testing equipment. And those appraisal costs are elements that are in your control, where you determine basically the level of scrutiny that you put on the products that you get out of your facility. And they will help you to make sure that what goes out is, for instance, first time right, or is of pristine quality. And that helps you to make sure that you have clients that appreciate the product that they get supplied, and that they will come back because they like the product. On the other side, you have prevention cost, and those are costs that come from, for instance, quality engineering, where you design into your product quality attributes that will help you to deliver the quality that you're expected every day and each day. Imagine, for instance, that you would make devices for operations, and you would want that to be at a 99.9% accuracy. Then your quality engineering will require significant cost in order to get that, compared to, for instance, a product where you have a much lower standard. Other prevention costs that you can consider are quality planning and auditing. You have those costs at your facility, where you have people in the quality planning and auditing team that will do internal audits, and possibly also supplier audits with the suppliers for your product. You'll have system development and management costs, like the procedures that you provide that will govern the quality of your product and the quality of your systems, but also the oversight that you have. And those are some of the elements that are in prevention cost. If we talk about that a little bit further in the appraisal cost, between brackets I've put in push, because appraisal costs are typically costs that push into your system, and they basically help you to create a situation where upfront you deliver the quality that you're looking for, and that is something that's in your control. I mean, if you have QC income and goods, you determine the level of scrutiny that you put on the products that come into your warehouse that you're going to deploy in order to make your product. And you have to balance the amount of income and goods testing that you do, or the agreements that you make with your suppliers, that they do certain tests for you and provide you a certificate of analysis or a certificate of conformity, in order to make sure that the products that you use match the specifications that are required for you to have the right product. And with laboratory acceptance testing, a similar situation is there. You can have an internal laboratory where you have acceptance testing for the products that you deploy, both on the raw material and consumables that you use, as well as at the back end of the final product. And there also, depending on the approach that you take, you can spend more or less money in acceptance testing in order to have a higher or lower degree of assurance about the product quality that goes out of your facility. In quality testing and inspecting, you can have also there the opportunity to decide whether you will use IPC in process control testing in order to monitor the quality while your product is being made or assembled in your facility. And that will determine basically at the end of the line the amount of good product and the amount of waste that you create in your product. On inspection and testing equipment, you can also make a choice of having all your testing and inspecting equipment yourself, or use external services to do it for you. And by doing so, you have control about the amount of time and effort and, of course, money that you spend on making sure that the product that goes out is the product that you're looking for. Product review and release is another element where you have a choice of how much effort and how much effort and cost you put in there in order to do a review of your product and to make sure that it is formally released before sent off to the client. And with a product review, you can look at a daily review and individual inspection of your product. But also, for instance, you can look at the trending analysis that you do of repetitive products over a time frame of a week, a month, or a year in order to find areas of improvement in order to reduce the amount of inspection that you have to do by creating quality engineering elements on your product. If we look at the prevention cost, the system development and management cost is basically your system, your procedures and your standard operating procedures, and the oversight that is there in order to make sure that the product that is being manufactured at your facility meets the standards and is made the same way each time and every time. If we look at the quality planning and auditing, their prevention cost, if you have a very tight planning, quality planning and auditing team, where your suppliers, for instance, know very clearly what is expected of them in terms of the product specification that they have to deliver, and that they will inform you ahead of time if there is deviations from that, can significantly reduce the amount of waste generation or modifications that you have to put into your product lines in order to produce the product that you're looking for. Process control and statistical process quality are elements that also are considered prevention cost. So if you have process controls in place, you know while you're making your product that the quality is there. Just give me 1 second. And by doing so, the process control help you to segregate while you're producing your product, that it is just 1 second. I've got a bad one here. Apologies for that. So for process control, you have the opportunity while you're making your product to go in the intermittent steps to see which products meet your standards and have them handled all the way down to the end product. And those that don't meet the standard, that they drop out early so that you don't waste good time and money on faulty products. With quality engineering, you take your experience that you have from your IPC, but also from your process control and from your auditing to further engineer your product into the standard that you're looking for. And by doing so, you have an opportunity to manage basically the efforts that you put in for your product to be of the quality that you're looking for. If you look at quality training and workforce development, and there's prevention cost in the sense that if you have well-trained workforce, the chances of them making faulty products are less. And if you have a proper training, you can make sure that they are kept at a level of expertise and knowledge that is required in order to produce the products that you're making. If we then look at the other leg of our cost of quality, we look at the cost of internal failure, or we look at cost of external failure. And if we look at the cost of internal failure, we're looking at things like self-inspection and follow-up. If you consider self-inspection, you can do that at the equipment level. The operator standing at the line does self-inspection before they start the line so that they know that everything is in good shape in order to produce. Self-inspection can also be at the departmental level, that for instance the production department or the maintenance department perform self-inspection to see if the procedures that they have in place, the tools that they use, and the trainings that have been followed all are at the level that are expected. And if not, that there are corrective actions and preventive actions in place, and that there is follow-up in order to close self-inspection observations. You can have internal audits, and the difference between a self-inspection and an internal audit is that the self-inspection is done by the team itself, and an internal audit is typically done by some colleagues either in the on-site or from corporate office that come and visit you and make an audit of your systems and your activities that you're doing. And there also there can be observations, and those observations need to be followed up where they are being closed in terms of updating SOPs and updating work processes, updating training records, and those kind of things. With the available test equipment, the lack of that can limit you in order to make sure that the product meets the standards that you have set yourself. And if you have an abundance of test equipment, you may use a little bit too much of testing in order to to make sure that your product meets the standards that you've set. With training quality and follow-up, basically, and nowadays with a lot of turnover in staffing, it's important to have a training program that brings people on board easily, and that the people that are on board continue to be trained in the work that they're supposed to do. So making sure that that is done properly, follow-up is required on a regular basis, like every month or every quarter. If we look at the organizational development, the internal failure there can be that collaboration between, for instance, manufacturing and maintenance, or manufacturing and supply chain may create unnecessary delays, or door miscommunication. There may be elements that create failures of quality in your product. When we look at the external failure, we look at the external audits that you have to do yourself with the suppliers that provide you with materials for your product, or with consumables that you require in order to produce your product. And significant element in external failure is possible product returns for quality failures, or even worse, product recalls, because you have determined that you have supplied a faulty product. With these two elements, there's a lot of cost involved, and it's important that you have systems in place that prevent you from product recalls, and limits the number of product returns that you get. When we look at the material specifications and supplies, it's important that all your materials that you use in order to make your product, and all the supplies that you get delivered, have clear specifications, so that you get the same materials and supplies each and every time. And in order to make sure that your suppliers understand that, you may want to work with them to improve their quality system, or their supplies, and those are typically covered under supplier development cost. If you then have all these different elements considered and put in place, you want to have metrics for each and every of those elements, and metrics require a degree of design in order to be useful. As I showed at the beginning, if you have corporate level or site level structure, you want to make sure that your facility at one end of the country uses the same metrics or KPIs as another facility at the other end of the country. And in order to do that, you have to have metrics that are well defined and clearly specified. The format that I'm presenting here, you can see in the blue box that there is a clear metric description, and in the square below that there is a description of what the metric is about. There's a formula how to calculate your metric, and there is an explanation of some of the elements that are in the formula, so that for everybody that uses the metric, it's clear how to calculate it, And additionally, below that, there is even an interpretation provided for your metric with an upwards and a downwards trend, where you can see what the interpretation is when your metric goes up. And in this case, if you talk about project management cost per project versus budget, if those costs go up, it may mean, for instance, that your operating conditions are deteriorating, or that your project is being overmanaged. And by having such an interpretation section to your metrics, you can help the teams to understand what they may need to do in order to bring the metric back into target. So if we then look at the same strategic, operational, and tactical levels of quality management review, for a KPI, you can develop the KPI tree, and that's what is depicted here in this picture. At strategic level or at site level, you would typically look at profit or some similar metrics. Ultimately, money has to be generated for the facility to run. And if you look at the profit, it's pretty straightforward. There's fixed cost in that, and there's variable cost in that. And they are segregated at a tactical level in things like staff. The salary of people typically is considered a fixed cost. The facility itself is also considered a fixed cost. And if you look at the variable cost, you look at things like consumables or rework. And with consumables, in this example, you can look at something like the utilities that are used per batch that you produce, or the excipients or the auxiliaries that you use per batch as a metric. And there it's important to recognize that profit and fixed cost and variable cost typically are considered lagging indicators, because it's only at the end of the month that you know what your total fixed cost will be or your total variable cost will be. And those help you to determine the profit that you can make. But because they are lagging, they are not necessarily metrics that you can really steer. So to convert those from lagging into leading indicators, you need the specific line here in the picture, like the utilities per batch that you require in order to make your product. Because with those you can instruct your operators. You can instruct your operators to provide you with the utilities consumption that they have per batch, and they have a degree of control over that. So you can work with them to know that if you want to hit a certain profit at the end of the month, your utilities need to be at a certain level per batch in order to match that. Or the excipients that you use need to be within a certain range per batch in order to make sure that you will not increase your variable cost too much over the course of the month, such that you will hit the projected profit that you're looking for. In this picture, you can see that profit is the cost on one side against the revenue on the other side. And the non-financial metrics that you have are basically your leading indicators for the process that you're doing. And if you then look at the next level, the way that I look at quality management review is that Jack Stack, for instance, he developed the Great Game of Business back in 1983, where his company at the time was at a very poor situation. And he basically developed a quality management review where he worked with his team in order to produce all of his products in such a way that he could make profits. And later, John Case, about 10 years later, he further developed that in what nowadays is called open book management. And those two references I'm providing because they really help to make quality management review quantitatively, and not just for the quality department, but for the whole organization. And yeah, that's basically the story of the line. So if there are any questions, I'm open to that.